Hi, friends. So today we're going to be learning how to estimate. So we'll be learning about estimation. So our expectations for today is to stay muted unless called on by the teacher. I need your listening ears, observant eyes, and to raise your hand. All right, friends. So we need a blank piece of paper today and a pencil to write with, friends. So go ahead and get those materials. You can pause the video if you need. All right, friends, we're going to move on. So previously, we learned how to round using a number line. So today's lesson, we'll be learning how to estimate the number of objects. So why is this important? Well, estimation can help determine the correct answer from a set of possible answers and help us come to reasonable solutions. It also saves us time. So estimation is making a thoughtful guess. This means that our answer is not exact. So an exact answer is exactly how many objects there are. An estimation is just a guess. So we use estimations and estimates when we're shopping, when we're cooking, with time, and with distance. So we use estimates on an everyday basis. Isn't that cool? All right, friends. So in math, some key words when we're estimating is about, close to, and almost. So there was about 5 dots, or there was about 5 Roblox, and so on, friends. So do we know what the word estimate means? Let's see if you remember, friends. So when you estimate, you make a smart guess, which means you look at what you have or what you know, and then you make a guess. So let's take a look at this example. The bag shows it has 50 marbles. So if I wanted to estimate how many were in the jar, would 10 be a good estimate? No. Would a million be a good estimate? No, that's probably too many because we want to look at what we know. And if the bag has 50 marbles, we can make a guess of how many are in the jar. So let's look at our jar. We know that the bag is 50 marbles. My guess would probably be 100 or 150. What would your guess be? Great guess, friends. So you estimate when there are too many of something to count, like stars in the sky. There's too many to count, so it can't be exact. But we can estimate. So what would you estimate? How many stars do you think you'll see? Great estimate, friends. So when estimating, we also need to look at the size of objects. So let's look at these two jars. If I were to estimate which jar has more, which would you choose? The one with gumballs or the one with beads? Right, I would say the one with beads. I can tell that because the beads are smaller. So even though the jar is a similar size, the beads are smaller, which means that there's probably a lot more. All right, friends. Now we're looking at 3 jars, A, B, and C. Which jar can we estimate has 100 objects in it? Is it A with the bare erasers? Is it B with the beads? Or is it C with the Skittles? So I know that A, the objects are too big for there to be 100 in that jar. And B, the beads are small, and it is halfway full. And C, there's Skittles, but it's nowhere near halfway full. So which jar can you estimate has 100 objects inside? Right, I think B. Great estimate, friends. So now we're looking at two jars. Our first jar is the reference jar. Our reference jar has 10 cubes. Our estimation jar, how many cubes do you think are in our estimation jar? What is your best guess? Do you think it's 5? No, because if we look at our reference jar, we know there are 10 cubes, and it almost fills up half of that jar. And we notice in our estimation jar, it's almost all the way full, which means it has to be more than 10. So what's your best estimation? What's your best guess of how many cubes are in our estimation jar? Right. I would say around 20 or about 20. Great estimations, friend. So now we're looking at 3 jars. Our first jar is labeled 100, meaning there are 100 jelly beans inside the jar. Our second jar is labeled with a question mark, meaning we're going to have to estimate how many jelly beans are inside. And our third jar is labeled 400, meaning there are 400 jelly beans that fill the jar. So how can we best estimate what is in jar number 2? Do we think that there's 50 jelly beans in jar number 2? No, because we look at jar number 1 and it has 100 jelly beans, and we can see that in jar number 2, there are more than 100 jelly beans. Do we think that our jar number 2 has 500 jelly beans? No, because if we look to our third jar, we notice that has 400 jelly beans. And our second jar has less jelly beans than 400. So what's our best estimate? How many jelly beans do you think are in jar number 2? Right. I would guess maybe 200 or 300. Great estimations. All right, friends, now we can see on our left side we have 2 turtles. What do you estimate? How many turtles do we have on our right side? Do you think we have 5 turtles? No, I think we have a little more than that. So what's your best smart guess? What's your best estimate? Right, I think there's about 12 or 14. Great estimate, friends. So now we will need a piece of paper and a pencil. Let's go ahead and get your piece of paper and your pencil. So with your pencil and your paper, I want you to number your paper 1, 2, and 3 because we're going to be estimating 3 different problems. So go ahead and number your paper 1, 2, and 3, and we'll get started. So we can see on our jar number 1, it's labeled that it has 90 gumballs. So what would be our best smart guess, our best estimate of how many gumballs are in our second jar? If we look at our first jar that has 90, do you think our second jar would have more than 90 or less than 90? What's your best estimate? How many gumballs do you think are in jar number 2? Go ahead and write your first estimation on line number 1. All right, friends, we're going to go on to our second problem. All right, friends, so our second problem is our first jar has 30 seashells. We need to estimate how many seashells are in our second jar. So we notice that our seashells are halfway full in this jar. And there are 30 seashells in this jar. Our second jar, what do we notice? That it's full. So what do you think? What's your estimate of how many seashells are in the second jar? Go ahead and write that on line number 2 of your paper. Write your estimate on line number 2. What's your best guess for how many seashells are in the second jar? The jar with the question mark. Great job, friends. We're going to go to our last problem now. All right, friends. So now, if we look at jar number 1, it tells us that there are 40 gummy bears in this jar. How many gummy bears do you think are in our second jar? What's our best estimate? What's our best smart guess of how many gummy bears are in our second jar? If we know that our gummy bears in our first jar, there are 40 of them. So what is our best smart guess for how many gummy bears are in our second jar? What's our best estimate? I want you to go ahead and write your estimate on line number 3 on your paper. All right, friends, you did an amazing job today. Today we learned how to estimate a number of objects. And remember that math help is available for you if you need it. And we're always an email away, and we look forward to seeing you in class. All right, friends, have a wonderful day.